I'm standing here with a 2018 Porsche Macan S, and today I'm going to show you why this is the best used SUV that money can buy. And also, if you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Comment below what you guys think about these videos. Let me know if you want to see more of these, and also give me some feedback on some things I can improve on. But without further ado, let's get to it. Now, the Porsche Macan was first introduced in 2014 when Porsche wanted to attract a new customer base, and they wanted to compete with the likes of Audi, Mercedes, and BMW, and the car became a huge success. It was quickly Porsche's best-selling vehicle, and it comes in 4 different trims. You have the base model, you have the S model, which is what this car is, you have the GTS, and then you have the Turbo. This S model, brand new, starts at around $60,000 before options, and on a Porsche, options can quickly double the price of the car. However, if you're picking up one of these used, this is a 2018 model. If you go even earlier, it can be cheaper, but for 2018 Macan S used, they're going for about $45,000 to $50,000. Now, some of you guys may be thinking, well, why don't I just buy a BMW 5 Series for 45, 50 grand instead of buying an old used Porsche? And well, that's true, you can do that. However, the thing is that the Macans actually hold value extremely well. They don't depreciate. In fact, they are actually Porsche's best value holding cars aside from their GT and their special edition cars. So when you buy the Porsche Macan, although it's fairly expensive for a used car, you're actually getting more value for your dollar. Now, this car has 348 horsepower. It comes with a twin turbo V6, and it goes 0 to 60 in about 4.9 seconds, and I think it goes faster considering that Porsche usually understates its 0 to 60 times. I'm going to start with the interior of the car because I feel that it has the most gadgets and features, one of which is the center dash. Now, the center dash has a ton of buttons. In fact, I counted all the button slots out on the center dash, and it comes out to 40 total buttons. That is insane. Now, some people like the touchscreen. A lot of other auto manufacturers have gone with the touchscreen dashes, and actually a lot of Porsche's newer cars have incorporated some of the touchscreen systems. However, the Macan, and this even is true in the new Macan, the 2020 model, it still has the same layout. Now, personally, I like it because it's jet fighter pilot-like. It's very cool. It has all your features you need. You have your air conditioning, you have your drive mode, suspension, driver assistance, seat heating, all that stuff. However, I do have one complaint with the center dash, and because this is a button system, it's not touchscreen, you're left with empty slots if you didn't decide to pick all the options for your Macan. So if you didn't get the Sport Chrono package, or you didn't get the PASM Sport suspension system, well, if anyone's in your car, they're going to know that you cheaped out on that option. Next, I'm going to talk about the infotainment system, which I think is actually very intuitive. It's very high resolution, high definition, easy to use, simple, and has basically all the things that you need. You have your media, you have Apple CarPlay, navigation, you can answer phone calls, you can adjust your sound settings, you have different apps that you can incorporate into the car. However, my favorite feature is the car button. Now, you click on it, and it shows various statistics about your car. It shows the weather and temperature and all these other weird statistics that Porsche decided to give you. However, the coolest part about it is that in the background, you have a digital version of a Macan. Now, it's not just any Macan, it's actually the exact color and wheel and exhaust configuration that is on this car, which I think is a very cool attention to detail. So if you order your car in green with red wheels, if that even is an option from the factory, and you click on your car button, you're gonna get a green car with red wheels digitalized on your infotainment system. Now, next I'm gonna talk about the driver's side, since if you're buying this car, it's where you're going to spend most of your time. I'm going to start with the steering wheel. Now, when you first look at the steering wheel, it actually looks pretty basic. There's not a ton of buttons on it. It's got that round, very iconic Porsche shape, unlike other auto manufacturers who have gone with the cutoff Formula One inspired steering wheel. Porsche is actually one of those companies that likes to stay deeply rooted in its tradition and its heritage, and that's why they've gone with the circular wheel. Now, the two probably most important buttons on the steering wheel are going to be the two little scroll ball wheelie things. The one on the left is pretty simple. It controls your volume. You scroll up to increase the volume, you scroll down to decrease the volume. On the right hand side, however, it actually controls your driver's infotainment, which is located in your gauge cluster. Now, the driver's infotainment isn't quite as advanced as the central infotainment system. The software and graphics aren't as good. However, it's actually pretty far ahead compared to its competitors, and it shows basically all the stuff that you would need in a driver's infotainment system. You have your tire pressure, you have your engine and oil temperature, you have your trip time, you have navigation, media, and all that stuff. And it's pretty simple and easy to use. And then on top you have your, shows your gas mileage and all that stuff. Now, going on to the left side of the driver's infotainment system, you're going to have your tachometer, which I personally like this tachometer mainly because it's analog. In a world where most car manufacturers have decided to go digitalized and, all this new school stuff, Porsche's, once again, is staying deeply rooted into their tradition and their heritage, and you get an analog cluster. Now, the analog cluster really only shows three things. It shows your RPMs, it shows your speed, and it shows what gear you're in. Now, Porsche does this because when you're driving on the racetrack, those are the only three things that you should be caring about. You don't care about what the navigation or infotainment or what your text message says. You should just be focused on driving. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, and that is the key fob. Now, this is a pretty interesting one, and there's two things about it that are rather weird. The first one being is that it's on the left-hand side of the steering wheel rather than the right-hand side, like basically every other car manufacturer. And the second weird thing is that it's an actual key rather than a push button. So why is that? Have Porsche's engineers just gone crazy and they don't know what they're doing? No, there's actually a reason behind this, and it's mainly because Porsche's old Le Mans racing team, when they started the races back in the day, they had to run into their car and start it up rather than sitting in it with their car already started. So because back then they had to drive manual, they thought it would be more efficient and quick if the ignition was on the left-hand side, and then they could use their right hand to change gears and get off the line quicker to give them an advantage in the race. Now, I personally think that's a pretty cool feature. It also is just more engaging to turn on. I feel like twisting an old key fob is a little bit more fun than just pushing a button like every other car manufacturer does. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in the front of the car is the sunroof. This is a configurable option. Not every Macan has it, but most of the cars that you find at the dealership and used ones will have the sunroof option. And if you're wondering how to open the sunroof, it's actually pretty easy. Now, you obviously have two layers to the sunroof. You have your actual sun visor, which blocks the sun. I personally like this because it stops the car from heating up on really hot and sunny days. However, if you want to open it, you're going to have to open two layers. You have to open the sun visor first, and then you're going to have to open the actual glass. Now, to open the sun visor, the first one that you click is the first one at the top of all these buttons. It's this little square piece with these four lines on it. You just click it once, and then it goes back all the way. Waiting. Okay, now once the sun visor is up, then you have to open the glass part, and open the glass part is actually just underneath the sun visor button. You'll see an outline of your Porsche Macan with its roof coming up, and you just pull it towards you once, click it, and it opens automatically. And then that is your sunroof. Now, before I get into all the cool exterior features of the car, I just want to talk about the overall general shape and body line of the car. I personally love it. I think it looks a lot better than the Cayenne. It looks so proportional and sporty and agile, and really, nobody can really complain with it. There aren't a ton of people who hate the Macan. It's generally a car that everybody likes, and I personally just love the design. I think Porsche really nailed it on that. Now, the first interesting feature of the exterior that I want to talk about is the hood. Now, most cars, they have fenders, but on your Porsche Macan, you don't. Instead, you just get one singular piece that covers the whole entire car, and when you lift it up, it actually looks pretty cool. And to lift it up, you just find the little latch right here. If I can even find it. Lift it up, and it pulls up. and you get this cool little outline of the headlights and all that stuff that looks really cool. Now I'm going to show you the back end of the car. Now personally, I actually like the shape of the back end. It has that real coupe-like shape, that kind of sloped roof line. I know that some people don't like that because I think it looks stupid on an SUV. However, because of the size of the Macan and just the overall body lines, I personally think that the sloped roof looks pretty good. Now the rear end of the car is actually pretty simple and basic. There's not too much going on with it. You know, you have your basic Porsche logo and the trim badging and all that, but there really isn't a ton of stuff. It has these cool lights that look, you know, pretty good in my opinion. And then on top of here, you have your kind of aerodynamic, you know, wing or spoiler, if you want to call it, type thing. However, one thing that you realize is that the license plate is actually pretty far below the trunk, and that might make you think, well, how am I going to open the trunk if the actual license plate is, you know, below us, 2 pieces below the actual trunk itself? You know, where's the handle for the trunk? And well, there isn't a handle. In fact, to open the trunk, you have to go on the windshield wiper, and there's this little button that shows your Macan trunk opening, and you just press on it one time and it opens like that. Now the next thing that I'm going to talk about on the rear end that I personally love are the quad exhausts. Now these are actually the sport tailpipes. If you get the base model Macan, you're going to get these square tailpipes that personally I don't think look as good as the quad tailpipes. These things look really cool and they sound good as well. And before I show you the exhaust note, the newer Macans, if you're somebody who really loves exhaust noise and you like loud cars and all that stuff, the newer Macans actually are a lot more muffled in terms of exhaust. I guess this is just due to the new regulations and whatnot, but the 2018 and earlier Macans actually still have that really nice cold start and, you know, the really throaty exhaust that the newer ones don't have. And without further ado, let's take a listen to it. So now we're in the trunk of the Macan, which is actually quite big considering it's a small SUV. Its stated figures are 17.6 cubic feet of trunk space and then 53 cubic feet of trunk space if the seats are folded down. Personally, I know that you can get all of your groceries, all of your shopping bags in the trunk extremely easily. This is actually pretty impressive considering that it is a rear sloped car. It has that coupe look on it, but somehow Porsche, you know, with their German engineering, they've found out how to get the car to be quite big considering its parameters. Now the first interesting feature in the trunk is going to be this little visor thing right here. Now there's a reason why this is here. The reason is because Porsche owners, when they park their car and they leave it out somewhere in the public, they don't want people looking inside their window to steal their bags or whatever else they bought. So Porsche took note of this and they decided to give their customers a free visor, which you can easily unhook and hook. It hooks on these little black things right here. It also has some storage space underneath it, but nevertheless, if you're someone who has your Macan and you don't want people looking inside your car, well, you're in luck. The next interesting feature in the trunk of the Macan is the fact that it has a power outlet. So, you know, in case you were just chilling in the trunk and you wanted to charge your phone because it was running low, well, you can just flip up your power outlet and you can charge your phone. It has 12 volts, which is plenty of power. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about in the trunk is actually underneath the trunk where the spare tire is. If you want to access your spare tire, it's actually pretty easy and simple. There's this little plastic latch that you just pull up, and then it folds in half, and then half of the tire is revealed in this weird plastic box that's stuck in place, and some other various tools if you're trying to change your tire. But if you want to access the full tire, you just flip it up again, and then you have your full tire. Now that isn't the end of the story. The odd thing that you find on the tires is that there's all these stickers that's showing PSI numbers and instruction manuals and all these different mile per hour things, and says that actually the max mile per hour that you can drive on this spare tire is 50 miles per hour, which is pretty slow considering it's a Porsche. However, another interesting feature that I noted is that the writing on the stickers is only in Chinese. There's no English, there's no German, there's no French. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the majority of people who I think Porsche thinks needs a spare tire, or who would be in that situation. Now, another thing that I wanted to go over in the rear seats is the actual legroom that you have in the rear seats. I hear a lot of people online complaining about the Macan being too small and that they go for the Cayenne because the Macan just isn't practical enough. And I think that's a bunch of garbage. I've been in the Macan a lot. I've sat in the back seats, all three in fact, even the middle one, and there's plenty of room. This is me. I'm about 5'10", so I'm not insanely tall, but I'm also not short either. And I have plenty of leg room. You know, there's absolutely no issue. And this seat isn't even pulled up all the way. This is about in the middle of, you know, the seat range. It's extremely easy to fit into. Headroom is obviously really good. If you're in the middle, you're actually gonna have the best headroom because you don't get the pillars in the way. But even me, I feel like, you know, I can touch it if I lean up a little bit, but you know, if I'm just kind of, you know, laying back like this, there really isn't any issues with the headroom or legroom or anything at all. So if you're someone who's worried about the car not being practical, you can't fit your kids in the back, you can't fit people in the back, you can't go on road trips, trust me, you can do all of that. It's definitely practical. Now, the next feature that I'm gonna show you guys in the Macan is actually in the center seat. I think this is very intuitive. I absolutely love when cars do that or do this. I think most cars actually do. But in the center seat, you have this little fold down, and it's basically an armrest and also two cup holders, so you don't have to hold all your drinks in the back after you get your Starbucks. And you can basically use this center seat as, you know, your just armrest to place stuff and all that, if you aren't using 5 people. Now, there isn't really too much going on in the rest of the back seats. However, I do want to note that you have 2 USB cables in the back seat, so you can charge your phone. You also have seat heating, and if you choose it as an option, you can have seat conditioning for all the back seats. This is actually a really cool feature. A lot of cars don't offer the heating and the air conditioning for the rear seats. So, you know, obviously with Porsche, you're getting a really good quality product. This car personally does not have the air conditioning spec on it. However, it does have the seat heating spec. It's pretty easy to use. You just tap it. It has 3 different levels. So you don't actually control the temperature of the seats by hand. You have to click it and it goes up 1, 2, 3. The third's the hottest, one's the coldest, and so forth. There's one thing that I want to talk about, which is really weird. When you're controlling the temperature of the actual air vents in the rear seats, so you have 3 different levels. You have, you know, your 3 hot and your 3 cold. However, your temperature isn't one set temperature. It actually does hot and cold based on what the front seat is using. So if the front seat has it on, you know, the coldest setting, and you put yours on the warmest setting, your warm setting is going to be slightly colder, where if the front seat is using the hottest setting and you use your coldest setting, your cold setting is going to be slightly warmer than it would be. All right, so we are in the Macan. We are finally driving it. We're gonna see how it feels. First thing I notice is just how comfortable and practical it is. The car just feels extremely easy to drive. You know, so much traction, that Porsche all-wheel drive system and that PDK gearbox. It feels like you're driving on a cloud, you know, and I haven't even stepped on it yet, but just like, you know, just cruising around the city, everything just feels so smooth. All right, so got it straight right here. I'm gonna open it up a little bit. Oh, yeah, that's quick. That's actually pretty quick. Alright, so we're going to be taking it on some corners right now. We're going to see how this thing handles. This thing is supposed to be one of the best handling SUVs on the market, and I'm going to test it out. So let's get to it. Cool. Okay. Let's see how this thing does. Wow. This thing's sticking right now. Cool. No tire noise whatsoever. A little bit of tire noise right there, but I'm really pushing it right now. Wow, this thing is so on point. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. I was not expecting that out of an SUV. That handling is insane. Alright guys, that wraps up the video for today. I hope you like it. If you do, make sure you smash that like button, make sure you subscribe, it really helps me out a lot. Also, comment below what you guys want to see next, what cars you want to see, what kind of videos you want me to make. I'm really open to anything, so just give me feedback so I can put out more videos for you guys. And I guess that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.